This is Eye on Africa. Coming up on the programme. The World Food Programme wins the Nobel Peace Prize for its efforts against hunger and conflict. We'll be heading to South Sudan for a look at the challenges it faces there. Mali's former opposition leader Soumaïla Cissé and French charity worker Sophie Pétronin are free, but plenty of questions remain about how the hostages' release was secured. We report on the Somali women taking a stand against extremists to enjoy the sport they love, basketball. Thanks for joining us. The World Food Programme has won the Nobel Peace Prize for its efforts combating hunger for those hit by conflict and hardship. It comes at a time when the coronavirus pandemic is pushing millions more people to the brink of starvation. WFP's largest emergency humanitarian operation is in South Sudan, where civil war has left 5.5 million people, that's almost half the population, in need of food assistance. I asked WFP's Marwa Awad in Juba about the challenge it faces in the country.
South Sudan is the biggest operation for the World Food Programme. We aim to reach 5 million people every month, and it's a very complex operation. You have a confluence of climate change, including drought in the past and now extreme floods, as well as the conflict between, subnational conflict, we call it, between tribes.
Of course, this award comes at a time when the world is going through a coronavirus pandemic. How is that affecting the organisation's work, not necessarily just where you are, but across the African continent?
Yes, well, the World Food Programme has been the backbone of the overall humanitarian response across the world. So not just in Africa, but in terms of our region here, we have been able to maintain at least 93% of our staff on the ground to continue these operations, because whether there is COVID or not, it's important that the food, which is the basic commodity that people need when they're in war-torn situations, it must be present at all times. So we've taken the precautions, we've put in place logistical plans to ensure that not only are we delivering our own assistance, but also assistance on behalf of other agencies.
OK, and COVID and conflict aside, you mentioned it yourself just now, the biggest challenge going forward is probably going to be climate change.
Well, actually, I mean, it's one of the biggest ones, but we're also recognizing that, unfortunately, man-made conflict is on the rise again, which means that hunger is on the rise. The good thing is that in 2018, the Security Council passed a very important resolution, 2417, which made the link between conflict and hunger very clear. And we want to use that opportunity with having won the Nobel Peace Prize to bring that to the attention of the world. There are 690 million people who are very hungry across the world. Some of the achievements that we've made in the past years have been reversed because conflict has been on the rise, as you very well know. And these emergencies are huge. So you've got, in Yemen, the World Food Programme is supporting 12 million people. In Syria, it's 4 million. And in South Sudan, it's 5 million. These are big numbers. And we require the assistance of the wealthy countries to step up and provide as much as they can.
Marwa Awad talking to us from Juba. Now, Switzerland's foreign ministry says a Swiss hostage who'd been held in Mali for 4 years is dead. A ministry statement saying she was apparently killed by kidnappers from the Islamist JNIM group about a month ago. The exact circumstances, they say, remain unclear. Switzerland's saying that information about the killing was obtained by French authorities from freed French hostage Sophie Pétronin. She's arrived back on home soil this Friday. 75-year-old was released alongside former Malian opposition leader Soumaïla Cissé and 2 Italian nationals. Questions are now being asked about the circumstances of the release, which comes just days after Mali freed over 100 suspected jihadists. Mario Sofos has more.
A heartfelt embrace with her son on the tarmac at Bamako airport. After 4 years in captivity, Sophie Pétronin is finally free. So what do we know about the hostages released overnight on Thursday? Apart from Pétronin, a 75-year-old Franco-Swiss aid worker, 3 other hostages were also set free. 2 Italian citizens and prominent Malian politician Soumaïla Cissé, who is central to the negotiations with Malian authorities to secure release. As for the parties involved in the negotiations, the details remain unclear. The French government appears reluctant to comment, saying that the answers lie with the Malian government.
The negotiations were completely led by the Malian authorities, so it's them you'll have to ask questions to.
The release of Pétronin and the 3 other hostages comes days after Malian authorities freed nearly 200 prisoners, sparking speculation of a swap. Some of the men released are jihadists.
La majorité d'entre eux ne sont pas djihadistes, donc ce ne sont pas des combattants. C'est des gens qui pivotaient autour de cette insurrection en Somalie. Il y a, on va dire, 2-3 têtes d'affiche de chefs djihadistes connus, condamnés au Mali, dans certains pays africains et même des fois au-delà.
France has 5,100 soldiers deployed across the Sahel as part of its anti-jihadist campaign in North Africa, Operation Barkhane. Some experts have fears about seeing new jihadists set free in the region.
Il y a un paradoxe incroyable français où en même temps ils sont en train de lutter contre ces djihadistes et de les neutraliser, comme ils disent dans le nord, à Thessalite, et en même temps c'est justement à Thessalite qu'ils libèrent 200 djihadistes.
In a statement released on Friday morning, French President Emmanuel Macron maintained that France supports Mali in its fight against terrorism.
In Kenya, a man acquitted over 2013's deadly terror attack on a Nairobi shopping centre has been abducted. That, according to his lawyer, he said Liban Omar was seized just 5 minutes after his release by gunmen he suspects were security officials. Omar had spent 7 years in custody following the attack at Westgate Mall, which left 67 people dead. 2 other suspects, Mohammed Ahmed Abdi and Hussein Hassan Mustafa, were found guilty of charges including conspiracy to commit terrorism. Elsewhere, chaotic scenes in Nigeria, where police used tear gas to disperse demonstrators in the capital, Abuja. They'd gathered to protest alleged brutality by members of a police unit. The special anti-robbery squad's in the spotlight after a video circulated last week allegedly showing officers shooting a man dead in Nigeria's Delta State. Protests have broken out in several places across the country in recent days. Now, health authorities in Uganda have sounded the alarm bell over the potentially deadly consequences of a lack of blood supplies. The country's just 7 collection and distribution sites, and donations have been drying up amid restrictions brought in to fight the coronavirus. Irene Nakasita is head of communications at the Uganda Red Cross Society.
Due to the COVID-19 challenges, of course, we've had an impact on our blood donors. One, people don't feed well anymore. People are stressed. People migrated. Some, like the schools that we're donating, of course, we also targeted schools because we have donor clubs in schools. But apparently, schools are down. They're closed.
Now, deserted streets are set to become a common sight in the Tunisian capital, Tunis, for at least the next fortnight. This after authorities brought in a nighttime curfew in a bid to stem a surge in coronavirus cases. Similar measures have been brought in several other cities. Our correspondent Fadil Ali-Riza has more.
Many other cities, major cities, have implemented similar curfew measures. Many health experts had been warning or advising for stronger measures or at least stricter enforcement of existing health protocol. However, for the moment, for now, the government is not implementing strict measures. They are leaving it to the governors.
اجراءات معناتها حاجه اوبليجي لازمها تصير الموضوع هذيك لو معناتها كان باش يخلوها هكاك باش تمرض برشا عباد باش تمرض.
سي با سيفيزون سيرتو انه الوعي معناها كله والخوف من الفيروس هذا بارابور للمره الاولى نتاع مارس للموجه نتاع مارس وكل شيء الوعي اقل.
من قبل من بكري نستناو فيه قرارات كيما هكا خاطر لو ريسك توا انورم اون بو با نيجليجي يعني نقولوا نخرج نعمل شوبينغ لي بوتيك وكل شيء تلقى الجيل في الباب يقول لك بافيت اوبليغاتوار مي كوميم يعني العباد تقعد في القهاوي في الريستورانات تو.
Weeks into the new school year, we've seen a huge increase in cases, and some teachers are calling for schools to close. But the government so far has been reluctant to take stronger measures or implement another full lockdown, as they fear it hurting an economy that's already been in crisis. While the country may be avoiding a bigger economic shutdown, at the same time, health workers are overworked and hospitals are overstretched, many of them lacking the resources they need to keep up with the rising numbers of sick people.
Finally, to Somalia, where we report on the women taking a stand against extremists to enjoy the sport they love, basketball. Despite being driven out of the capital, Mogadishu, in 2011, al-Shabaab militants still mount frequent attacks there and are known to threaten women and girls who play sports out in the open. This from France 24's Nicolas Germain.
In Somalia, it's not easy to play basketball when you're a woman. Many Islamists believe women should not play sports. And the capital, Mogadishu, is frequently hit by attacks carried out by the al-Shabaab jihadists.
Mogadishu is risky. We cannot openly say we're going to play. We put our playing kit and shoes in school bags and carry them to the field. And we pretend we're going to school or university. Despite the insecurity and with no government to support us, we still love playing basketball.
For security reasons, the girls and women play in compounds behind high concrete walls. Some of the coaches started training here when a civil war erupted in 1991.
When the civil war began, many boys and girls started taking drugs and sniffing glue. We decided to keep them busy. We organized basketball games. I love these girls. Some later joined the national team, and others went abroad.
The women here receive no funding. The coaches are not paid. But they are passionate about basketball and want to start teams all over Somalia.
That's it for Iron Africa. Do stay with us here on France 24. More international news coming up very shortly.
Special events.
It's one of those events you cannot ignore. Every 4 years, all eyes are on the White House. Donald Trump or Joe Biden? Who will America pick as its next president? Will the Republican incumbent stay in office, or will his Democratic rival unseat him? Throughout the campaign, our correspondents and guests will discuss the issues at the heart of the election.
Follow election results in our special edition beginning on the 3rd of November on France 24. Liberté, égalité, actualité.